Well, we are in this second half of Book 7, Canto 2. I think in our last class we enjoyed reading about the mind of man, its weakness and its plus points, its limitations, etc. And today I think we will take up, which line is it? All the worlds? Possibilities. Yeah. We are going to take up a new section which naturally falls into a step further. In the sense, we said in this integral yoga, when you are going in search of the soul, there is almost a very definite process. And the process was, as we said, you may first discover the levels beyond the mind, but before that you need to know thoroughly the nature of mind itself, so that you can go beyond it. And that's what we got here in our last description, the nature and the character of the mind, the human mind. And then Sri Aurobindo takes us to the opposite end, that is the subconscious. And then we come into the subliminal. Because Sri Aurobindo did describe in his letter, if you remember, we see the mind, and then next we discover the subliminal, the ranges of the subliminal being, and then we come back to the higher level, the universal aspect. So what we are going to take up today seems to be the discovery of the subconscious. But these are maybe, as we see Sri Aurobindo writing in his letters, this has been the process of his own self-discovery. So let us take up the reading before we go further about the description of the subconscious. So the last lines which we have from the previous stanza, if you see, but there is a guardian power, there are hands that save, calm eyes divine regard the human scene. Well, after describing the entire nature of the terrible angel or the mind, which was quite depressing and disappointing, but Sri Aurobindo kind of comes as a savior grace to tell us in the last two lines that in spite of all that, there are hands that save humanity, because humanity is being watched. Calm eyes divine regard the human scene. Regard, of course, is the regard they. Regard they is to see, to watch. All the world's possibilities in man are waiting as the tree waits in its seed. His past lives in him. It drives his future space. His present acts fashion his coming fate. The unborn gods hide in his house of life. I'm sure Aurobindo uses this image in quite many other passages too. That is, the possibilities in man are waiting as the tree waits in its seed. So you can see, he says, in the little small seed, the entire tree, the fruits, the bulk, the leaves, everything of that huge tree is there embedded in that little seed. So that is a magnificent image, I think, a simile to tell us what is embedded in the human being. We at present seem to be impotent with a lot of limitations and all that. But the future holds those possibilities. So this is pretty common in Sri Aurobindo, this image of the seed and the tree. And this is also again a line which we get in another book. His past lives in him, it drives his future space, his present acts fashion his coming fate. I mean, in another line where he would say, this past is his foundation, it lives in him. The future is his goal, and the present is the material, as he puts it here, fashion his coming fate. So, Sri Aurobindo gives in this sentence importance, relevance to the past. We cannot really get rid of the past, saying that it's over, because after all it is the foundation. So we have to build the future based on the foundation of the past. And you see how it ties up the past, the future and the present, because based on the present we build the future, in the sense every act of the present brings in the future. See, future is not something waiting there in 2016, 2015, it's not something there. Future is not just a time future, it's a future in the sense of consciousness. The future consciousness is pulled in or brought in by our present actions. So we can delay the future or we can hasten the future. It's not the question of 2020, 2030. That's not the future that Sri Aurobindo is speaking of. It's the future consciousness. Because for him, that future consciousness of the Superman or whatever you want to call it, that can be hastened. And that's the whole effort of Sri Aurobindo, to hasten the advent of the future. Otherwise, if it's left to the time future, then this entire yoga of Sri Aurobindo has no meaning. It has to be left to nature and to time future. It may be after 3000 years or 300 years. No, he said by yoga, it can be pulled in faster. So that's what he tried, and he said it depends on our effort. The unborn gods hide in his course of life, in his house of life. The demons of the unknown overshadow his mind, casting their dreams into live molds of thought, the molds in which his mind builds out its world. His mind creates around him its universe. All that has been renews in him its birth. All that can be is figured in his soul. You see, this is the important phrase here. The whole future is embedded in his soul. Why does he say that? Is it in what way should we understand that? You see, it's after all the soul which has those future possibilities. It's the soul which has come down into this human body with an experience or for an experience that is looking forward to. So the soul is always wanting that future, that kind of an experience. So it is trying to work out that experience, but there is the consent of the mind and the body and the vital which needs to be taken. In most of us, the soul may want a particular future, but the consent of the outer being is not there. That's why there's a delay in the dreams of the soul being fulfilled. Issuing in deeds its course on the roads of the world, obscure to the interpreting reason's guess, lines of the secret purpose of the gods. In strange directions runs the intricate plan, held back from human foresight is their end. And the far intention of some ordering will, or the order of life's arbitrary chance, finds out its settled poise and fated hour. Well, this is there as we see the question of the far intention of some ordering will. This ordering will is a very beautiful phrase, because you see, we had seen in the previous paragraph, there are hands that save, there is a guardian power, there are calm eyes which regard. That means there is somebody, some divine will which is ordering, which is watching our life. And the word ordering is very, very poignant in the sense, there's nothing like chance. In fact, or the order of life's arbitrary chance, but actually there's nothing like chance. Everything is being willed by the divine regard or by the divine hands. So all that is happening in our life in a particular order, is the order actually drawn out by that saving hand. So, finds out its sealed, poised and fated hour. Everything is, the fated hour, the order, the way things are happening. They're all in that perfect order of the will. Our surface, watched in vain by reason's gaze, invaded by the impromptus of the unseen, helpless records the accident of time, the involuntary turns and leaps of life. Only a little of us foresees its steps. Only a little has will and purposed pace. All that we are trying to plan, etc., is hardly anything. I mean, we can foresee, we can plan our future, and this foreseeing and this planning is hardly a percentage of what happens in our life. Because what really happens in our life, there are other sources. One is that ordering will, as he calls it. Then he will describe next the subconscious. Then there are these world's forces. So you see, placed in all this, the divine will, the subconscious, and the forces around, our little will, our little planning has hardly any effect on our life. It is actually molded by the other three major forces. So that's why he uses the word little so much. Only a little of us foresees its steps. Only a little has will and purpose pace. Why? Now, he starts with the description of the subliminal. A vast subliminal is man's measureless part. Now he begins to tell us that what is it that really controls our life most. I mean, there is the divine ordering will, the hands are there, the divine hands guiding, but on a day-to-day practical hour-to-hour basis, which is the force that's most active in us, in our life? It is the subconscious, not even the divine will. The divine will has a kind of a game plan, but on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour basis, the divine will is not that active. It is mostly our own subconscious. So a vast subliminal is man's measureless part. The dim subconscious is his cavern base. Abolished vainly in the walks of time, our past lives still in our unconscious selves, and by the weight of its hidden influences is shaped our future self-discovery. So here comes the the really the greatest force in our life. But there is one thing that I would like to clarify before we go further. You see, in these two sentences, he says a vast subliminal and the dim subconscious. So, what is the difference between the subliminal and the subconscious? You see, both sub means below. The word sub, submarine, subconscious, sub is below. But asked a question, what is the difference that Auroville makes between subliminal and the subconscious? He says subliminal, he uses it as behind, subconscious as below. So behind the outer surface is the subliminal. Below the outer consciousness is the subconscious. So there are two different levels. One is the horizontal. Say if this is the outer personality, what is behind is the subliminal. What is below is the subconscious. So he would say a vast subliminal is man's measureless part. He has just said that, but he is not going to describe that. He'll resume that later. Now he comes to the level of the subconscious, that abolished vainly in the walks of time, our past lives still in our unconscious selves. Well, I'll read out a letter later, but let's cover a few lines. What is the subconscious? It's an extraordinary thing. Abolished vainly in the walks of time. That means in our conscious life, be it the mental, the vital, the physical, anything. All that we are doing while we are awake, on any level, either we get it consciously or unconsciously, we reject it or we accept it, because our mind has a specific capacity. It cannot hold, in your computer language, 1000 GB. It has a capacity of 4 GB, 5 GB. But what happens is all that is being rejected by us. That's what Auroville calls it abolished vainly. If I say, no, this thought is not good, this desire is not good, this is not right, I don't like this, or I've had an anger, everything that goes out of my mind, Auroville says, where does it go? It cannot just vanish in the thin air. So it sinks in. There is always this repository called the subconscious. In a glass of water, if you put some powder on top, after a while you will see that powder will get slowly down. In the beginning it was on the top, but slowly it sinks in and goes to the bottom of the glass. Similarly, all our thoughts, all our emotions, all our aspirations, everything sinks. That's why you come out in the morning with pretty fresh and say, my mind is light. Because at night what has happened is all this has sunk in, leaving your 4 GB free for new activities to come in, for taking up new images, new thoughts. So every morning I say, yes, I'm fresh. But actually what you have done is that all the 6 GB that you absorbed in the day, it has gone into the subconscious. But then the danger. So he says the dim subconscious is our past lives live still in our unconscious selves, and by the weight of its hidden influences is shaped our future self-discovery. Well, it's an interesting thing, by the weight of its hidden influences. But what has sunk down does not lie down quiet and cool, as you say. It has its own reaction. It has its own influence. And it surfaces when you are out of guard. It comes back. And suddenly you say, hey, I never thought of that. I was thinking of the Savitri class. But then suddenly an idea came which I had rejected in the morning. I said, no, this cannot happen. But it surfaces. It doesn't take our, may I come in? It comes and occupies you ruthlessly. It doesn't seek your permission. So it is all the time influencing us. So many a time we are ourselves surprised as to our thoughts, our emotions, our lack of control. You see, when we sit for meditation, when you are like that, sitting quietly, suddenly there's a whole swing of ideas that come in. From where did these ideas come in? You're not sitting there and thinking. But the moment you try to quieten, that's why the meditations are so very difficult. Because once you try to quieten the mind, then the subconscious says, this is my time to come up and usurp this vacant space in the mind. So meditations are not just wanting to be empty or silencing. Because if you silence the mind, if you can, which is difficult, you have to fill it up. And before you can fill it up, the fellow who is closest to is the subconscious. So all the wrong ideas, the bad ideas, the wrong desires, the forceful desires, they come and occupy your so-called emptying mind. So in meditation, that's why in Mother's and Sri Aurobindo's meditation, we don't want to empty the mind. We don't want to silence the mind. Because it can be occupied by either these universal forces which are there, waiting for a vacancy somewhere or a vacant thought, or the subconscious things are there that are also waiting to usurp. So, in our meditation, it's not the silencing of the mind that is activated. What is activated is the aspiration. Your inner aspiration, what we call the heart's desire. So what we try to do is to wake up and raise up the heart's aspiration, so that this aspiration can, by its intensity of concentration, create a silence of the mind and also occupy it. You see, that's the beauty of this dynamic meditation. It doesn't leave the mind free, or it doesn't leave the mind open, it doesn't leave the mind silent. So there is this double effect of the heart and the mind, as Sri Aurobindo would call it. That's why our meditation is called the dynamic meditation. It has nothing to do with silencing. Because silencing of the mind can be extremely difficult, as the mother herself would say. It takes a long, long time because it's constantly under the attack of the subconscious. So whenever you want to quieten your mind, you are opening up the lid of the subconscious. So you are having a kind of a negative battle, all the time trying to suppress the subconscious, which you cannot. So that's why Sri Aurobindo calls it here, and by the weight of its hidden influences, it shaped our future self-discovery. Thus all is an inevitable chain, and yet a series seems of accidents. The unremembering hours repeat the old acts. Our dead past round our future's ankles clings, and drags back the new nature's glorious stride, or from its buried corpse old ghosts arise. Old thoughts, old longings, dead passions live again, recur in sleep or move the waking man, to words that force the barrier of the lips, to deeds that suddenly start and overleap his head of reason and his guardian will. I mean, I just am enamored of the way he describes. I mean, so accurate, each one of us can see ourselves in these lines, If you are sincere enough, you will see all that is absolutely true. You see, the unremembering hours repeat the old acts. Our dead past round our future's ankles clings, and drags back the new nature's glorious stride. You see, a simple, most mundane example: your New Year resolutions, 31st of December, and you say, from tomorrow I'm going to do that. Well, we had a fine article on that New Year resolution. Thank you for that, Arjun. Just remember. You have a resolution to make and you do all that and all that. But what happens? This subconscious drags you back. And within 24 hours, you go back to 31st December or 29th December. And you said, hey, my God, I said this same thing last year. Every year you do the same thing. Because what takes the resolution is the 1/100th of our being. 99 parts are the subconscious part. You cannot change that. So they come back, they drag the future, and or from its buried corpse old ghosts arise, old thoughts, old longings, dead passions live again. Lot of poetry is that. Old thoughts, old longings, old passions. What is that? Memories or the recollected in tranquility. What is that called? Emotions. The famous Wordsworthian line, emotions recollected in tranquility, his definition of poetry. But these are not emotions recollected. This is all what Sri Aurobindo says. Thoughts and longings and dead passions, they are recollected when sitting under the tree, sitting at the Savitri Bhavan outside. You will get a lot of poetry, because in the silence here, all that is within you comes out and nobody will disturb you. So, that's what is called really in fact, what the mother describes the modern poet, modern painting, modern artist, as nothing but the subconscious, painting of the subconscious. There is nothing inspirational coming from above. It is you are giving a conscious vent to the subconscious. So you have all the Picassos in the world, where you don't recognize the human figure, one nose is here, the eye is here, lips are here. That's exactly what is there in the subconscious. It's all distorted. You can see a nose somewhere there, you can see an eye somewhere there, but there's no harmony, there's no beauty, there's that balance. It's all a distorted figure that is there in the subconscious. And Mother says, this is what has come up in modern times, be it in poetry, be it in art, be it in everything. And you see a friend of mine is going to Greece for an exhibition of art, modern art. And very frankly, I don't know what is that art, but modernity is modernity. People are enamored of anything so-called modern, where there is broken up things, broken up painting, broken up things. Somebody has put a part of the door latch somewhere and that you frame it here, and wow, people stare at us. Well, I have no comments, but I am saying this is the subconscious, where you do not allow the beyond to come in, but you allow the below to come up. So there you see, and the buried past, recurrent sleep or move the waking man to words that force the barrier of the lips, to deeds that suddenly start and overleap. This is suddenly you have done a certain thing, you have spoken certain things, you have said something, but you say, after all, gusse mein sab kuch kehte hain, in anger I can tell all kinds of things. But exactly what did you tell in anger? Because anger is the best outlet of the subconscious, where your conscious mind is not there, and the subconscious comes up with all its mumbo jumbo, with all its irrationality. So he says, it breaks your lips, because which you wouldn't have said otherwise. If you are in control of yourself, you wouldn't have said this sentence. But now there's an upsurge of the subconscious. It breaks the barrier of your lips. You start uttering things. His head of reason and his guardian will. An old self lurks in the new self we are. Hardly we escape from what we once had been. In the dim gleam of habit's passages, in the subconscious darkling corridors, all things are carried by the porter nerves, and nothing checked by subterranean mind, unstudied by the guardians of the doors, and passed by a blind instinctive memory. The old gang dismissed, old cancelled passports serve, nothing is wholly dead that once had lived. Brilliant. That's really why we say the dog's tail never changes. You cannot straighten the dog's tail. You cannot change human nature. Because all that is there, the old self is there, the new self we are trying to do, but the old one is lurking, And you see a beautiful passage where it's giving almost the description of the security that we pass in the airport nowadays. That means there is all things are carried by the porter nerves. There's no checkpoint anywhere. The subterranean mind doesn't do anything. The guardians of the doors are not careful, and then the blind instinctive memory comes into aid. And the most important, the old gang dismissed. Old cancelled passports serve. You see, you may say, I don't want to do anything with my old self. But your passport is still there. So that means you are allowing the past to come in. You may reject it. But the old passports which are there in your subconscious, they say, no, I recognize this man, this passport is valid. And therefore the old comes back again and again. So nothing is wholly dead that once had lived. I mean, this is where our famous theory of karma comes in. We think I'm done for, I'm over, and I've done this action, something past. 10 years back I used to have this kind of a thing, but not now. Nothing is lost. It's there, and that's why we have the karmic theory, that you may want to reject it, you may have forgotten it, but somebody has recorded all your actions, all your thoughts, all your desires, all your emotions. And that fellow comes on, hey, wasn't it you who said that? Do you recollect your picture? Do you recollect your handwriting? And so we have to face these judges of the past, and that is called karma. So either you do that facing of your acts in this life, and we Indians are experts saying, don't bother, there's another life. You can wait and see. Next life also the diary will be shown to you, if this is your diary or not. So really, you see, that has put in such a burden on the action of the present, of the action of the now. Because if I do anything now, it is noted by somebody somewhere. So he says, nothing is that vanishes. In dim tunnels of the world's being, and in ours, the old rejected nature still survives. The corpses of its slain thoughts raise their heads and visit mind's nocturnal walks and sleep. Its stifled impulses breathe and move and rise. All keeps a phantom immortality. So, well, it's the same idea. The old rejected nature still survives. The corpses of its slain thoughts raise their heads. You know, it's as if the dead things are coming back, because nothing is dead, nothing is gone. And especially these things come up in sleep. So most of our dreams are from the subliminal. But there are, subconscious, but there are some dreams from the subliminal. So all the horror dreams, all the terrifying dreams, all the black dreams, they are from the subconscious. But all the good dreams which gives you harmony, the sense of joy, they are from the subliminal. So dreams have two sources, the subconscious or the subliminal. Subliminal is because the subliminal dreams are good because they come from the psychic being's influence. Subconscious are all the horror, all the fear. So everything is there. So they come in the nocturnal, as it puts it here. Its stifled impulses breathe and move and rise. All keeps a phantom mortality. Irresistible are nature's sequences. The seeds of sins renounced sprout from hid soil. The evil cast from our hearts once more we face. You see, this is the same thing as I was telling you about karma. The seeds of sins renounced sprout from hid soil. You never know from where, sometimes, I don't know if, I hope you've never had that suffering. If you have a boil in your body and you go to a homeopath, he says, okay, take this medicine. And the boil vanishes in your left arm that was there, but it comes out some other part of the body. Not one, but maybe many more. Because unless and until you get rid of the disease. You have just suppressed it here. But it may come out from any other hidden soil. And there was a plant in our garden. I'm amazed at life's persistence. It was a big creeper and we could not hold it in our little back garden. So we had to uproot that. Very sadly we did that. But there were some roots that were there in the ground. And imagine, 5 meters away, suddenly one morning we see the same plant coming up. So we uprooted that and it's coming from another end of the garden. It took us years to get rid of that plant because we thought the roots are gone, but under the ground it goes and it comes up there. So he says the sins are same thing. The seeds of sin renounced. Today I have renounced the bad acts, bad thoughts and all bad thoughts, but from somewhere else, unconscious moment they come up. The evil cast from our hearts once more we face. Our dead selves come to slay our living soul. Very beautiful, very tragic in fact. A portion of us lives in present time. A secret mass in dim inconscience gropes. Out of the inconscient and subliminal arisen, we live in mind's uncertain light and strive to know and master a dubious world, whose purpose and meaning are hidden from our sight. Above us dwells a superconscient God, hidden in the mystery of His own light. Around us is a vast of ignorance, lit by the uncertain ray of human mind. Below us sleeps the inconscient, dark and mute. He has given a beautiful graphic picture. Below, around, above. So that's what I told you in the beginning. Above is the superconscient God, around is the ignorance, and below is the inconscient. So you see, human being, the poor human being, he is not just such a simple creature that he looks to be. He is surrounded by the divine, by ignorance, and by the inconscient. So in order to battle all of them and then go towards the divine, you can imagine what a Herculean task it is. Well, before I go further, I'd like to read a letter from Sri Aurobindo. This is volume 22, page 353. Yeah, this is more or less, what's beautiful is we find in these letters the same experience, not the same thought, obviously. But only in Savitri we see that put in a very powerful poetic language. But the experience is essentially the same. That's on page 353, volume 22. In our yoga, we mean by the subconscient that quiet, submerged part of our being in which there is no wakingly conscious and coherent thought, will or feeling or organized reaction, but which yet receives obscurely the impressions of all things and stores them up in itself, and from it too all sorts of stimuli or persistent habitual movements, crudely repeated or disguised in strange forms, can surge up into dream or into the waking nature. That's what we have seen in Savitri too. The same thing, that which receives the impressions of all things and stores them up. So the subconscient is that universal storehouse of everything that we do. We think, we feel, we act. It's a storehouse. So, of persistent habitual movements, crudely repeated or disguised in strange forms. You see, that's how we understand that all human beings have the same habits, be it hunger, be it passion, be it sex, be it fight, be it violence. How is it that we all share the same thing? A creature in Africa or China or Europe or India, a human being born shares this. He doesn't have to be taught. When the age comes, you have the urge. When the age comes, when you eat. So who taught us? There's nothing to be taught. Because we have risen from matter, and the body itself is an output of the subconscious. So all these things automatically, without your wanting, they're there. So, there is a beautiful story by the mother. I forget its title right now. But it is the story that's opposite of Savitri. Just the reverse. Sapphire tale. No, sapphire tale. Yeah. Sapphire tale. Now, I want to take out only one portion there. What is the heroine's name? Well, whatever. So there is this young lady living on an island, and she has not seen a man, a figure of a human being. She has grown up in that forest. Maybe the background is not given. And on the other side, in a small kingdom, is the hero. Really interesting. The mother writes a story which is exactly the opposite of Savitri. Here, the king is a very nice man and very noble and wise and all that. And his son grows up and he says, son, you go and find your partner now. Because in my kingdom, the law is that if you are not married, you cannot become the king. So you have to get married. And go and look for your partner. So instead of Savitri going to look for Satyavan, now here this young man, he goes out in search of his partner. Lian, I think Lian is the name of the lady. So he goes around everywhere, and then at last in the end, just like Savitri takes a chariot and goes into the forest, this man takes a ship, goes across the oceans, and there he comes upon this island. And exactly this Lian, or whatever the lady's name, I think Shruti is finding out the name, when this man is approaching the island, she gets a feeling that some human being is approaching. Not only a feeling, but she gets almost a rapport, a connection, that this is the man that I want to be with. See, what I wondered was, a lady who has never seen a man, and yet she has that attraction. She has that birth of love in her body. And then when the gentleman, he comes to this island, they meet in the same forest, and they recognize each other. Then she says, yes, I will come with you to your kingdom. Just like Savitri agrees to come to Satyavan's forest, here Lian, whatever her name, she comes with a gentleman to his kingdom. They are just two opposite stories, but meaning the same thing. Symbolically, the Sapphire tale or Savitri are similar stories, but with opposite characters. But what I was trying to tell you is, this lady living in the island doesn't know a human figure, but when the time comes, the love comes, the need comes, wants a man, wants to marry. So that's what we are seeing everywhere. There is in this human consciousness the same characteristics. So Sri Aurobindo tells us here, of persistent habitual movements, crudely repeated or disguised in strange forms, can surge up into dreams. For if these impressions rise up most in dream, in an incoherent and disorganized manner, they can also and do rise up into our waking consciousness as a mechanical repetition of old thoughts, old mental, vital and physical habits, or an obscure stimulus to sensations, actions, emotions which do not originate in or from our conscious thought or will, and are even often opposed to its perceptions, choice or dictates. This is that what we are discussing, that all these subconscious things, they rise and they become your mechanical repetition of thoughts, old mental, vital, physical habits. This is, it's not the question of east or west or north or south. Every human being is the same, because our source of our birth is the same, the subconscious. The physical comes from there. So, there is the same mental reaction, the same physical habit, the same this thing. There's a little variation because of the geographical environment. Otherwise, what we eat, the way we eat, everything is the same. So he says, emotions which do not originate in or from so and so. In the subconscious, there is an obscure mind full of obstinate samskaras, impressions, associations, fixed notions, habitual reactions formed by our past, an obscure vital, full of the seeds of habitual desires, sensations and nervous reactions, a most obscure material which governs much that has to do with the condition of the body, is largely responsible for our illnesses. Chronic or repeated illnesses are indeed mainly due to the subconscious and its obstinate memory and habit of repetition of whatever has impressed itself upon the body consciousness. You see, the mother once refers to this, somebody had asked her about getting an illness in the same month, same period of the year. She said, mother, every October, every January. She said, because this thought has been seeded in your subconscious. You have once or twice, happened to have it, but now you have formatted it and put it in subconscious. So your mother is saying, Shwamna is saying, it has impressed itself upon the body consciousness, whatever has become the habit of repetition. So all our illnesses, sometimes, when it was many years back, when I was almost a kid, there was a group of teachers from Hyderabad. I mean, it's really stuck in my memory. You can imagine, there was a big impact. One of the teachers said, Ananda, at 4 o'clock, we are going on a picnic somewhere. She said, I want to have tea. I said, here in this place, how can I have tea? She says, no, 4 o'clock, if I don't have tea, I'll get a headache. It was the conclusion drawn. If no tea at 4 o'clock means headache. You see, that formation, what Shwamna calls a habit of repetition, it gets stuck. And really you'll get a headache. Because from the subconscious, the thought comes and pushes and brings you that headache because you have given it the formula. So he says, most of our habits are like that. Repeated illnesses are indeed mainly due to the subconscious and its obstinate memory and habit of repetition. But the subconscious must be clearly distinguished from the subliminal parts of our being, such as the inner or subtle physical consciousness, the inner vital or inner mental, for these are not at all obscure or incoherent or ill-organized, but only veiled from our surface consciousness. Our surface constantly receives something, inner touches, communications or influences from these sources, but does not know for the most part when they come. So this is the difference that, again, I was talking to you about the subconscious and the subconscious. Subconscious, he says, is very clear. This is the inner vital, inner mental, and they are only veiled from our surface consciousness. So they are the luminous part. Subliminal, you see, subliminal is the luminous. They are more luminous. Subconscious is dark. So that's the difference. Because this is luminous, because it's closer to the psychic being. And the three Purushas, the Annamaya, Pranamaya, Kosha are there. Annamaya, Purushas are there. So because of this influence, there is a luminosity in the subliminal. Where the subconscious is towards the inconscious, so there is all the darkness. So he says, don't confuse between the subliminal and the subconscious. They don't have, they are quite different. And this one more thing is subliminal is the entry door for our universal. In the sense, if you want to contact any cosmic forces, universal forces, any vital worlds, any mental worlds, the entry point is the subliminal. The inner mind opens the door to the mental worlds. The inner vital opens the doors to the vital worlds. So our mind itself cannot have the contact or the connection directly with the occult worlds. It goes via the subliminal. So you can see our external mind life and body are very minimal. They're very small things. What is really active is the subliminal, and what is really impacting us is the subconscious. So we are really, in all literal sense, pure puppets. We think so much of our decisions, our planning, our this. We are really puppets in the hands of this nature's forces. And the only way to master is to connect with the master. That's the psychic being. If there is no contact with the soul of the psychic being, we cannot quite hope to gain any kind of mastery, because everything is deeply rooted in the subconscious. The smallest habit, the smallest disease, the smallest this thing, and which we try to fight out with all the medicines and this therapy and that therapy and all. Therapies are of no good, no use, because no therapy really goes so deep into the subconscious. The only therapy that is given is the Shravana and the mother. But go deep into the psychic being, or what they have done, bringing the supermind into the subconscious. That's a big story. But one more thing I would like to tell you before I leave this letter. You see, it's because of this connection with the subconscious that the physical as such cannot be transformed fully. Do what you will, the last layer of the physical, the gross physical as we say, cannot be transformed even by the supermind. I mean, there is a stage where it can be influenced. That's the best that the mother has done. Brought in a cellular consciousness deep in supermind. But she had to leave behind, as Nalnida himself said, what could not be transformed because it is born of the earth, is born in the normal human way. So was Sri Aurobilo's body. The last gross physical had to be left behind. Well, now what is the solution? When we speak about the physical transformation, how far can we go? How far did we go? And I think in some other letter, Sri Aurobindo mentions, I think, all that is born the human way cannot be fully transformed, because it carries the subconscious. It's a product of the subconscious. So what is the method now? The Superman or the Overman or whatever you want to call, how will he be born? Will he be born of the same method that we have now, under the womb of the mother? You see, even our mother's womb was prepared by the 4 Shaktis when she was in her own mother's womb, meaning that it was the most spiritual, most transformed, most enlightened womb itself. I mean, the best of the possible circumstances that a human body could have been born, and yet it was not capable of the ultimate transformation, because in whatever way you do, the subconscious does not leave us. So there is an interesting conversation about of course Sri Aurobindo has said this, but I came across an interesting dialogue between 2 great giants, Nalnikanta Gupta and Andre Maurice. One, the son of the mother, the other, the son of Sri Aurobindo. the son in the sense, you all know he called, Sri Aurobindo called Nalini the Manasaputra, the child of the mind born it is. So Nalini was the mind born child of Sri Aurobindo, and Andre was mother's own son. So they had a conversation in 1981, February 18th. This was videoed, and from there I got a transcription. I'm sorry, just a brief one I'll read out to you. And of course with them was Purna Prema, you know Purna? Granddaughter. And Vanda was the wife of Andre, Vanda, W-A-N-D-A. So he says, Andre says, bonjour Nalini. Nalini, bonjour, bonjour. Andre, how are you? All right? Nalini, fine. So the week passed happily because it was Darshan week, 18th February. It was in 81. Andre, oh yes. Nalini, please be seated. Andre, thank you. Nalini, Vanda is here? Yes, she is here. Vanda, bonjour Nalini. Nalini, bonjour. You are well, I hope? Vanda, perfectly well, thank you. Nalini to the photographer, he says, have you started? Andre, yes. Is the light enough? Nalini, you want me to say something? The photographer says, yes. Purna Prema, she says, yes, he would like you to say something. Nalini, in English? Purna, no, in French. In French it is better. You always speak with Andre in French. Nalini, yes. Now he starts in French, this is the translation. There is much speculation about the future of man. There is one such speculation that man will disappear. Not today, not tomorrow, but sometime. Man will be replaced by what we call today the Superman. Something absolutely different. But in the meantime, in between, there will be an intermediary species, the overmind man or the intermediary Superman. The animal was replaced by man. It is true, but there are nevertheless many things in common between the man and the animal. In the same way, there will be many things in common between man and this intermediary species, yet man as he is will be much changed. Andre, basically what Sri Aurobindo tells us is that man can transform himself to some extent into this intermediary being by practicing his yoga. Nalini, yes. Andre, and therefore one can hope that before developing a new external form, even this simple human species can bring in something of the overmind man. But now, is Sri Aurobindo justified in saying all that? We shall come to know perhaps. Nalini, the Superman will not be born in the same way man is born today. He will appear. But these are only speculations, one does not know. Purna, one does not know either how man appeared. One does not know exactly. Nalini, one does not know. It will be a descent. The new Superman will be a descent. Purna, manifested like this. Nalini, manifested, yes. Andre, isn't it a fact that the primary human species, like the man of Crotagnon, we see in our part of the country in France, is something like an intermediary between the animal and man at that time. He had certainly special qualities. What one sees in the caves of Dordogne, for example, it proves an artistic feeling which was already very human, although with a human aspect hardly out of the monkey stage. So to know how it will happen, that is difficult. Nalini, here all that is needed is to manifest in each of us something of what we call the divine, something which is not completely human, something better, something beautiful, something good. Andre, unfortunately, one always takes the better human as the divine. We do not know what it is. Purna, the better we understand as the human better, we do not know at all what the divine better is. Nalini, oh yes, that's true. Purna, the usual better is most probably not the better divine, not the divine better. Nalini, no, it is not. Purna, but this intermediary being, before its manifestation upon earth, will he exist in some other world, in an occult world, or does he already exist somewhere? Nalini, it is the creation of the mother. Even in the other worlds, it is the creation of the mother. Purna, but actually, in the earth atmosphere, does this form already exist? Nalini, yes, it is there. Purna, I mean in a terrestrial occult world? Nalini, yes, it is already there. 1981, so in 73 she had already left that form, is it? So Nalini has surely seen it. He says, yes, it is there. Well, rest is a couple of sentences. Two things. One is what Nalini and the great Purna and Andre, they insist, they come to know very clearly, is that it will be a manifestation and something that will appear, and obviously, and as Nalini calls it will be a descent. Now we can understand, after going through this subconscious layer, that the Superman cannot afford to be earthborn, because the moment anything is born from here, it carries the subconscious, the ignorance and the veil of this darkness. So now the method is, the new being will manifest. So it cannot be earthborn. He will come upon upon earth, it will be a concrete body, but the birth is not this way. The birth will be a descent and appear. It will be coming from beyond. So that is the first point that I understood, and that is why I thought what we said about the Savitri is very fully justified. And then the other one is important, as Nalini says, the new form is already there in the terrestrial atmosphere. It is not something unmanifest and beyond. And as Mother also would tell us in the agenda, that is there for all of us who have the eyes to see. Even this new form of the Mother is visible. So it is not something invisible. Sometime when I was a kid, I had written something about seeing gods and all that. I used to have some kind of visions. So she said, not only Shiva and Krishna are there in the subtle physical, because I used to see them sometimes, hovering around. Then she adds a beautiful note saying, even Sri Aurobindo is there in the subtle physical. You can see him. So along with Shiva and Krishna, she says, you can see Sri Aurobindo too. So Sri Aurobindo is there in the subtle physical, and now the Mother is there in her golden physical. So all these beings are there for our calling, for our contact. And that is what Nalini obviously, he knows, he has seen. So with that, you can see how firm he is there. He says, yes, it is there. Yes, it is already there. So this is the new being that will come. And I think we'll have to stop at that. Well, I just found this on my internet and I thought it's a very interesting thing to share with you. a conversation between Nalini and yeah.